exceptions. Otherwise, it's going to go by your student's last name. If you do not have a student that has already gone in high school, this page could be a little bit overwhelming, but it's pretty straightforward. And we will go through this year after year. The counselors will constantly be going over this with your students, so you will get the hang of it. And the good thing is, for freshman year, there's really not much of a difference between a standard and advanced diploma regarding what you will take. The first thing I want to point out here is this last column where you see the verified credits. These are the SOLs that your student will need to pass to meet the graduation requirements. And they are exactly the same. So there's zero difference between standard and advanced as far as SOLs. For English, the two that you'll need to pass, this is just for your information for later, they happen during junior year. So you don't have to worry about them for next year at all. Social studies, you just need to pass one, and there's 3 years of that. So there's a SOL with the freshman, sophomore, and junior year, and you only need to pass one of those. Same thing with mathematics, just one, and those SOLs are algebra, geometry, and algebra 2. And then for science, there's also 3 as well, and it's biology, chemistry, and geosystems. On the bottom here, you'll see students selected. That just means there's one extra SOL that you will pass, and it's usually where your student will have their most strengths. So like either a history class or an extra math one or an extra science one. So 6 total. And you have plenty of opportunities. There's retakes. There's another test called work keys. So not to worry about that. That's something I just wanted to give you a heads up on. As you look at these 2 columns and see the difference between the two, English, you're going to take 4, regardless of which diploma option you're going for. And all these other ones, social studies, math, and science, you're all going to start with taking one of these classes as a freshman. So that's what I'm saying. It really has to do with when junior to senior years, when you're going to make that choice of going for a standard or advanced diploma, usually. Both is health and PE with 2, PE 9 and PE 10. Everyone has to take econ personal finance. They both have extra electives. The sequential here is, art 1, art 2, photo 1, photo 2, something that the skill level will increase the following year. Right here, you see the WL is the world language, and why that's only under standard and not the advanced is because the advanced, that's the major difference, is that world language. They have to take a world language to get an advanced diploma. They don't necessarily have to take a world language class to get a standard diploma. They could, and that could count for their fine art CT or world language credit. But in order to get the advanced, you do have to take 3 years of one language, or what we call 2 and 2. So you could take Spanish 1, Spanish 2, and say, you know what, Spanish isn't for me, and change your language to another language, Japanese 1, Japanese 2. And that would also meet the requirements, or just go on to the 3rd level. So really, the decision for you all to make now is, if you think there's a possibility for an advanced diploma, you would just want to make sure your son or daughter is signed up for that world language class. So our counselors this week have already met with most of our feeder middle schools. So you might have already had this conversation a little bit with your son or daughter. So you'll see we're still trying to meet with Jackson. We have about 20 students that will be coming here next year. And we're thinking that's next week. We'll meet with them probably virtually. So all students will have this information. The counselors already went down to either do it virtually or in person. And so all your students have got this information already. So here is a couple of the resources what Ms. Lane was talking about earlier. We have an academic advising site. This has more details on the graduation requirement, a course catalog that I'm going to show you, course selection sheets, and then kind of like the course map, so you know like which level is next after what you're taking. And then the bottom one, this one has different videos that teachers have put together to give you more information on what the classes are. And like you said, we will send this out to everybody, so you'll have this. I just kind of want to show you briefly what each site looks like. And can you see that?
Yes, we can.
Okay, perfect. So this is where we'll also post this video on this page. We'll send it out directly so you'll see it. The graduation requirements, like I told you, they will see a little bit more information on that. The online course catalog, I'll click on in a second. These are the course maps, so you see where you start and what courses could build off of each other. And the virtual course is that second link in the PowerPoint that you can find also on this page. But one thing I did want to show you is the catalog that will kind of have a write-up of what each class is. So say you're interested in an English elective, you could come here and learn more about just a little, it just gives a little paragraph. So it's a little bit of background and you can see they're all listed here. So if you want to have more information that way. And then this one is from our own teachers that will give you even more information. So these will all be video links. So if you're interested in finding more about what CTE classes we have, you'll be able to click here. And you will not have to do this. I'm not sure why that came up like that, but you'll be able to see this, and we'll make sure that that link is accurate where you would not have to log in. But these will just show you different classes. So marketing, this is more about business classes, and this is more about the architectural classes we have. And then you'll be easily to click on over here to find out more about the English classes, as well as their electives. So this piece will tell you a little bit more, like when you go to the core classes, more about the difference between honors, gen ed, or AP. And then you'll also have the English electives and the different core electives that they have. So very, very helpful. You can see on the left-hand side here, it has all the different subjects that you can go through. So I really, really recommend going through and taking the time to see which each class is about, especially since I shared earlier, or we can go over again, that there's not, for a freshman year, there's not many electives that you take. So this is your typical 9th grade schedule. Everyone takes English 9, ours is English 9 honors, but you're going to take an English class, world history class, biology, math, PE 9, and if you're going for an advanced diploma, you have world language, which leaves you with just one elective. So that's where I say it's, to me, it's very important that you go through that website and find classes that, are very interested for your son or daughter. So for this, what everyone has the same is English 9 honors and PE 9. We're at all level, everyone takes honors here, unless you are a self-contained with an IEP, if you're an IEP student with a self-contained class, or if you're an ESOL student, those ones will be those respective support classes. We've been doing English 9 honors with a lot of success. Teachers are very good at differentiating. And so we're super excited about that. And our teachers are very excited about it, that we've been very successful. And then the choices that you'll make is for science would be biology versus biology honors, world 1, geography 1 versus the honors class, and math is determined by your current level. All these classes, to know the difference of what honors level to take, it's very important to talk to your current teacher. They would know best of which level to go on to high school, as well as your students counselor at your middle school, as well as the resources that we shared with you. Again, then the last 2 is going to be a world language and then another elective class. We never know what the master schedule is going to look like, so we always recommend to make sure you have alternative classes. So say you sign up for web design and only 15 students sign up, we most likely, due to staffing restraints, would not be able to offer that class. So we would have to look at what's the next elective your son or daughter would want to take. So very important to have alternatives that they would, and you can put them in order as well. So all course requests are put in SIS. So like I said, your students got this information this week. The one thing that is very, very important is this highlighted portion. You want to make sure that you're typing the course by their course ID. And if I can go back, sorry, this is what you want to have in front of you when you're doing it. So all your course IDs is going to be right here. So you don't have to look for it. I'd have this sheet in front of you, as well as, you know, looking at the different resources online. But when you know which class you want to take, you want to use, if you want to use, but you want biology honors, you're going to type in that number, 431036. If you just type in biology honors, you're going to have probably 10 classes of biology honors and you're not going to know which one it is. So it's very important to check to do it by, or to search by the course ID. Once you're done with your 7 classes, then you'll move on to the alternatives. And the same thing, you would just add alternative when you do that. And both for your 7 core classes you're looking for and the alternatives, it's both search by course ID. And just to let you know, there is an option to do it by the course name. You just don't want to use that option. One thing I'm not sure of is you guys have the opportunity to do this or if it's just on your student SIS. It might be just on your student SIS to do this, but you will regardless be able to see what they've signed up for on yours.
Can I interrupt real quick, Ms. Hogan? There's
Sure.
2 questions that I think are important. One is a parent asked, what do they do if they are planning on taking a summer school course, like the next math course? Do they register for the next course, assuming that they're going to pass the course they plan on taking over the summer, or should they register for the class that they know they're going to take over the summer and then change it once they've received a passing grade in that class?
If you're signing up for an online summer class, I definitely recommend going on to the next level. So if you're signing up for PE, so you can take an orchestra or something, have that extra elective, you do want to sign up for the next class. Your current counselor is the one that signed you up. And then we also ask them to send us an email just to make sure that we have that on there. If you end up dropping it, which would be very, very helpful, is for you to let us know, especially with a core class. So if you're signed up for geometry honors over the summer and we have you signed up for algebra 2, and then for some reason or another you can't take it, you're still going to be signed up for algebra 2. It takes a little bit before we there's not a great system that lets us know that, hey, you dropped it. So if you do have to drop a summer class, please reach out to your 9th grade counselor from the list I just gave you to let them know that you have dropped that class.
May I ask one more question? One more question is the plan for the 8th grade counselors to provide this sheet, or is it just access through our website where it's posted?
The 8th grade counselors do have this sheet, or they should have. But if not, then it would be, it's still on our website as well.
Thanks.
Sure. So just some different systems that we have in place for support. Cougar time is our return time. So this is something that we have every other day. And currently we have it on our 3rd period. So it will meet 2 classes during that 1.5 hour time. So it's during 3rd period. And things sometimes change over the summer. So I can't say guaranteed that's going to be the same, but I believe all middle schools have some type of similar system in place as well. But this is where you can retake a test, you can get extra help from a teacher, you can study. There's just opportunity during that school day to get caught up on things if anyone were to fall behind. We also have what's called the center. This is a group of peer tutors. It's actually a class, so it's great because they're trained on how to be a tutor. And we have that offered throughout the day, especially during the Cougar time return and then after school. And we have a great little sign up sheet. So if anytime your student needs extra help, they can just go ahead and sign up and they can have a peer tutor help them. Classes. So literacy lab is something if your English teacher recommends that, I highly recommend going into that class. It's very helpful to get caught up and prepare for those SOLs later. It also helps with other classes as well. So that's something your current English 8 teacher will help you decide whether or not that class would be something that you would benefit from. Evan 9, we do have a little slide on that, but that is another great class, especially for 9th graders that want to take an advanced class that maybe have not done that class, have not taken an honors class before. It gives them the extra support with them. to take those classes, as well as preparing for college. And it is a class that builds up. We have Avid 9, 10, 11, and 12. You stay with the same students. It's actually a very, very great class. And then, of course, our team taught students receive support in all their classes, including English 9 honors. And then if you're self-contained or ESOL students, they'll be continued to be enrolled in those classes. So Avid, as I said, it helps you stay organized, and it's very great for helping you study for classes. They do a wonderful job with that. It's like some of those students have said, where they just didn't know how to study, or they didn't know how to take notes and things like that. And this class has been great. If your student is someone that doesn't have a sibling that has gone for college, it is an actually great resource for them as well. Katie Bird is our Avid coordinator. So if you have any questions, you can reach out to her, or you can talk to your current counselor. And I've also linked the Avid application there as well. So special education students, in the 8th grade, you will have a transition IEP. Everybody has it, and an Oakton staff member will be there. So it'll be great to give you more information. Again, your courses that you choose is going to be driven by your IEP. And then you can see more information on who to contact if you have more, if you have questions for anybody at the high school level. You can see for the Cat A or the adaptive program. And they'd be more than happy. Shelly is one that will most likely be at most of your IEPs at the middle school. So she's probably the best contact for the Cat A, and the same thing with Jasna. So any questions for special education, feel free to reach out to any of those. And then I think that we will.
Ms. Hogan, you may want to do some questions before going to the activities part. I see a lot in there for you.
I have not had to chat up because it was kind of distracting me, so I apologize for that.
I've answered some of them. So if you want, it might be easier if I kind of go through a few of them, if that works for you, Ms. Hogan.
Sure.
So the question was about world language. If they take a world language class in 8th grade, does that count towards the 3?
Yes. So if it's Spanish 1, then that will count. It's really like, because some of them will have like the Spanish 1 part A and part B. So the Spanish 1 will count for Spanish. And it's something, if you have any doubts, for sure you want to talk to your world language teacher. But typically the part A and B, you would have to have the combination for Spanish 1. But yes, that will count for high school credit. And actually that brings up a good point. If the grade in that, if your child's not doing that great, it's actually highly recommended to retake that class. And you can expunge your 8th grade grade, where then you retake it and it never goes on your transcript. But any math class, so besides grade 8 math, like, so if you're taking algebra or geometry or algebra 2, those classes and grades will be part of your high school transcript.
Thank you.
Yes, I see Japanese 3 will be available for 9th grade students.
Okay, and then if they are planning to do an advanced diploma and test out of the world language requirement, should they still register for level 1 now and change it later if they do test out? And then, yes, if that's the case, they would add a second elective in place of that, correct?
Yes, or unless you just wanted to take a new language. So it depends on how, because you can get up to 3 language credits by taking the test, but you're not sure which one you're how many credits, because you can get 1, 2, or 3 credits from it. So really it is going to depend on the test results till we know for sure. But I would probably, my best bet would be to say, if you want to continue with the language, because some people want to go on to Spanish 4 and Spanish 5, I would probably sign up for Spanish 3 at that time, or whatever language you're in the 3rd level, because that would be the easiest to move up or down. If you want to just go to a completely different language, I would do that. So if you're thinking you're going to take the language exam for Spanish and you want to learn French, go ahead and sign up for French. So if that makes sense. If you want to continue with the language, go to the higher level. level 3. If you want to change your language completely, go to the lowest, the first level of the new language.
Is the 2 credit fine arts or CTE classes in addition to the 3 other electives?
So they will count up, you'll be able to have other electives on top of that, but you can double dip with the sequential and the fine arts. So world language, fine arts, all that, you can double dip with those requirements.
Great, and still on world language, could they take a language off, like if we're not offering a language, could they take one independently for world language credit?
So Fairfax County, it has to be through Fairfax County. So on the on that website, you'll see academies, and you'll look to see which one has it on academy or online. So there's 2 different options. So I would recommend the academy first, just because that will be in person, or you can also see what's available through FCPS online. The difficulty with that is the online classes, if it's not taken as an 8th class, with renovation, it's just very hard for, we don't have a space in the building for students taking an online class. So we ask that they have what's called an off-campus waiver, and they either come in late or leave school early. And it just makes it difficult for 9th graders because they don't have transportation a lot of times. So it just makes it a little bit trickier to take the online class at the 9th grade level.
Then there's a question about when they should do the course selection. Like, is there a deadline? I'm assuming that's based off of their middle school.
Yeah, so the middle schools are going to be working differently. We have asked for all middle schools to be complete with the registration. I believe it's the end of February. I think we gave a date of February 25th.
Wonderful. Someone's asking if you could talk a little bit more about why someone would pick an advanced diploma over a standard diploma.
The advanced diploma, honestly, there's not, colleges are looking at your rigor. So typically when you're taking rigorous classes, it goes towards an advanced diploma, or like the 4 levels of science, the 4 levels of math and that such thing. So it's not mandatory. You can definitely get into college with a standard diploma, but the advanced diploma is just taking those, like I said, those 4 years and having the world language where it becomes a little bit more rigorous. So that's why it's advanced.
Thank you. And summer school information that comes out, that hasn't come out yet. That will come out from the schools, right?
Yeah, that comes out from the county. I'm not sure what date that is yet.
Yeah, so we don't have that yet. And then there is a question here about AVID, which I can answer. Is it offered at other grade levels? Yes, we are very proud of our AVID program, and we have a program AVID 9, 10, 11, and 12. So a student could take it all 4 years. Let me keep going here.
I see a question for private schools or homeschool students. Beginning in early February, if you want to give our registrar a call, that's Ms. Hendelman, you can set up an appointment. It will be a little hard to get them all scheduled because counselors are registering all of our students up until mid-March, but we'll be able to squeeze you in sometime in February, in March. And
Also,
yes, AVID is an elective credit.
And the question about when does registration happen? If you are already enrolled in a middle school and you're within the boundary, it's automatic, right? It just rolls over. There's nothing that the parent has to do.
Correct.
Okay. 9th grade honors math virtual only. No, we have in person. We have, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, the algebra, so most of our students that are on the honors track, they are already taking Algebra 1 honors in their middle school. However, there are students that are not taking it that would like to be on honors track. We just do not have enough students signed up for Algebra 1 honors, and which is why Algebra 1 honors is only offered online. Again, that gets to be a tricky part because taking an online class as a 9th grader, we do not have a space in the building for students that are taking an online class. So again, that would be transportation, that would be then be for parents having to get them back and forth either coming in late every other day or leaving early every other day. We would put that at that class at the last block or the.
Thank you. A question about taking all honors classes. And is algebra 1 honors is only virtual, and that, yes, right, and that is because we simply don't have typically the enrollment in that class to run it in our building. So that one is a virtual only option. In terms of the electives, do you suggest people taking all honors classes? No, I personally do not suggest that. That is a lot of work, and to take an all advanced course load can just be a lot. Again, there's a lot of students that can do it, but it's a matter of should you do that. I firmly believe that students should be looking at where their strengths are and where their passions are and push and challenge themselves in those areas. And the courses they're just not as interested in, that would be an area where you might not want to push and add the honors so that there is the balance. That's my personal belief. But we do have, everyone's able to sign up for the courses that they wish, as long as they have the prerequisites. It's just, for me, it's always a matter of balance and making sure everyone has enough time in their day to do everything and sleep and do all those other things too. All right, there's a lot of questions about just SOLs. If they count, yes, they do carry over. I don't know if you want to talk about that piece of it. It doesn't count as our verified credit though, if you want to talk.
So if they've already taken like Algebra 1 and got the SOL, yes, that will count as their math SOL. I see a question for all honors necessary for the advanced diploma. Absolutely not. You don't even, the only, you have to take one honors class, and that's actually for standard or advanced. The rest of them, you can get an advanced diploma in taking all gen ed classes. Japanese 1 is being offered, yes.
And I see a lot of questions about summer school. Again, all that comes out from the division in terms of the cost of that, what all of those things would look like. That is forthcoming from the division. And as soon as that comes out, schools begin promoting it so that they can share with families and families can take a look at that. One question is, what are we registering for exactly? You're registering for the courses that you want your child to take next year.
And typically you are only allowed, like in past, the county hasn't given this out yet, but you're only allowed to take one summer school class.
And in terms of, just because I know we do want to move on in our presentation here, and then we'll kind of come back to questions. In terms of what languages we offer, what electives we offer, that course selection sheet does break it down by department, so you can more easily see exactly what's offered, and then all the resources that we have available, the videos and the all those things can really help students better understand what our offerings are to kind of narrow down those electives. But for freshmen, it's really world language, if you're taking a language, and one choice elective, correct, Ms. Hogan?
Correct.
Okay. And then if you're taking something over the summer, then that is to replace a requirement like PE or something. Then can you reiterate that? Because there's a couple questions on that.
I saw a question on PE. Can you take PE 10? I mean, you as a ninth grader, you can. However, I would say depending upon the age, because part of the PE curriculum is the driver's ed portion, which is why it's in 10th grade, because you're closer to being able to drive. So just there's the requirement for taking PE 10 is that you have to, the prerequisite is that you have to take PE 9. So there's nothing against it. I just wouldn't recommend it. A lot of times if someone takes PE 9 over the summer, they actually take an extra elective in its place.
Okay, and then what are AP courses? AP courses are advanced placement courses that are aligned with the College Board. So students actually do get college level credit for those courses if they pass the exam that they take, which is a College Board exam. And all of those classes are aligned with the College Board. So it is essentially a college level course that they are taking. Summer school, we don't know the dates for any of that until the division releases that information. There's a question about what year can they take the ASVAB?
I am not sure of that answer. That's more of a career center. Our career center specialist is Eddie McClam, but he would have the best answer for that. But I think it's typically during junior year.
There are multiple different levels of courses depending upon the which department you're talking about and which level you're talking about. So some of our classes have a standard, an honors, and an AP. Some of them just have standard and honors. So you have to look at that course selection sheet to see what is available and the different levels there. Okay. Ms. Hogan, if you can just explain again the dropping of a language versus a math. I think that was for the expunging of the grade.
Sure. So if your child is currently taking a world language or a high school math class, which is Algebra 1, Geometry, or Algebra 2, or any world language class, you have the opportunity to expunge that grade and then retake it as a ninth grader. So if your student, I say, has a C or lower, I would definitely consider that, especially moving on to ninth grade, because you also have transition year. I mean, there's just a lot going on for freshmen. And an A or B, I think they're fine, go ahead and move forward. But a C or lower, I would really talk to your school, your current counselor, as well as the teacher, to see if that's something that they recommend as well. But it can be a world language class or a high school math class that you can expunge, because those are the classes that would count, or that would be part of your permanent transcript record.
Okay, and if an elective does not end in 1, does that mean it doesn't have a sequential elective after it?
No, because you could take programming and advanced programming. And honestly, you could take programming and then like business law and management, because they're all under the business umbrella. And you know, your counselor, once you take one class, you'll be able to see kind of which ones go together. And so it doesn't necessarily have to be level 1, level 2.
And then one more time, can you explain what your recommendation is if they're planning on taking a summer school course, what they should do in terms of course registration for now?
Yes, so if you're currently in Algebra 1, plan on taking geometry, I would have talk to your son or daughter's counselor so that they know to sign you up for Algebra 2. If you're taking PE 9 to take an elective, sign up for that elective. And that way they can communicate with the high school counselor to know that that's where you are in there. If you ever drop that during the school year or during the summer, please you can email me or your student's high school counselor to let them know that you needed to drop that class, and we can make that change.
So there's a question about not all colleges giving college credit for the AP classes, even if they get the highest score on the exam. Can you speak to what colleges give in terms of APs and the exams?
Yeah, and I think, I mean, it really varies from college to college, which score, what score you need, which class, because some colleges will take some AP exams and not, but not all of them. And it's really like, we do not have a house of every single college of what they take and what they don't take. So it's really, you would have to do the research on which college you're interested in to know which AP exams that they take and what scores they are. We know generally a little bit about it, but it's just because it varies so much from college to college. there's nothing, and it can change from year to year.
In terms of our plan, does Oakton plan to incorporate ASL into our languages? Not at the moment. There are offerings in other ways. Do you want to talk briefly about that, Ms. Hogan, as to how students could still access that?
Yeah, so American Sign Language is actually offered at one of the academies. It's Fairfax Academy offers it. So that would be something, if interested in, your student would be able to apply for that. And they apply for that through their current counselor when they're registering.
Okay, and we apologize if we missed your question. We are going to let Mr. Full kind of talk about athletics, because that's something that we want to, and all extracurriculars, just so you get a brief taste of that as well. And then we can kind of come back to some questions there, and we'll try to keep up in the chat as well as you go there. Okay, all right, Mr. Full.
Ms. Hogan, you can go ahead and skip the video, I think, for time's sake. All right, thank you. Hello, my name is Patrick Full. I'm the Director of Student Activities at Oakton High School. Welcome, everyone. I know it's a lot of information that we're throwing at you, especially if this is your first time having a student coming into high school. So there are a lot of resources on our website for the school, Fairfax County, as well as our athletics website for athletics information. Here are some contacts that we have for the activities office. Ms. Krista J is the assistant director who oversees our clubs. And Ms. Weber is the activities office assistant and is the guru of all information, forms, and all of that. She also helps to put together our newsletter for registering. Her telephone number is listed right there. We will put out information about our athletic programs as we get closer to the end of the year for information coming into tryouts, and all of that stuff will start to be released. But our athletic website does have coach contact information available now. All right, so our athletic program, we have 27 different sports with 48 different teams with different levels. Over 1,000 athletes participate in athletics at Oakton High School for the year. We have a variety of sports that do offer freshman only programs, and those are highlighted there in bold with the asterisks. Our fall sports listed here, we have cheerleading, boys and girls cross country, dance, girls field hockey, football, golf, and girls volleyball. And as you see, we have 3 sports that offer freshman only, or I'm sorry, 4 sports that offer freshman only programs with our cheerleading, our field hockey, girls field hockey, football, and girls volleyball. So that's an opportunity. I'll get to our dates for when those things start. In the wintertime, we have our boys and girls basketball, which also has freshman only programs. We have girls gymnastics, boys and girls winter track, boys and girls swim and dive, and wrestling. In our spring sports, unfortunately, we don't have any opportunities for freshmen only. And when I denote a freshman only team, that means that only freshmen may participate in those teams. So when they're trying out for our programs, they're only trying out with 9th graders. For those that do not have freshman only programs, they would be trying out for either the junior varsity or varsity levels for those sports. And that would be baseball, boys and girls crew, boys and girls lacrosse, boys and girls soccer, girls softball, boys and girls tennis, and boys and girls outdoor track and field. We do have some programs that are very welcoming as they're trying to expand their numbers or just naturally carry large numbers. And those would be our track and running programs, typically carry very large numbers and are very welcoming, especially to freshmen. Even though they may not have a freshman only program, they understand that running doesn't have a club structure outside, and many students, this is their first opportunity to be able to engage in running or the field sport events for track and field. So those are opportunities there if any of the other sports are not something that your son or daughter may be interested in. So cross country, for example, which has both boys and girls, is a welcoming opportunity for new runners who are interested in trying to find a way to participate and enjoy running, or may hopefully find a passion for running.
Mr. Full, can I ask a question real quick?
Absolutely.
What are the ways that students can get, are we planning any visits to any of the middle schools to kind of highlight our sports, or what are some ways that they can become more familiar or excited about next year?
Well, we do have some of our coaches will be doing visits to the middle schools. Unfortunately, there's no currently organized thing for Fairfax County to be able to come in like we used to. But I do know that some of our coaches, especially our football coaches, are trying to get information out about opportunities there. Our coaches start drafting up information that they put online to get out the things that they offer. Once the kids matriculate from middle school to high school, and that's after the conclusion of the 8th grade year, they can start participating in our green days, which are out of season conditioning or sometimes weight training. Those are opportunities for middle school students to be able to participate in that once they've completed their 8th grade year before the actual season or 9th grade year begin. All of that information does get posted on our website, which we are actually on that proper page. So looking at the bottom is oaktonathletics.org is our website for Oakton Athletics. Every sport has a tab that also has the head coach information listed there. Email that coach and that coach will share information with you. I would still give it a little while through the spring as our coaches are starting to draw up their plans for next year as we're getting out of the winter season at the end of February and start spring season. So that's when our coaches start really posting information. So I'd wait to go online and start searching that. But you email our coaches, you can get onto their email distribution list. There are sports that are going to start stuff right away in the summer, like football. Baseball has opportunities. Lacrosse has opportunities. Basketball has opportunities in the summer. There are things there in the summertime. Other programs like soccer may not, because soccer has such a robust club activities in the summer that they may not start things until the school year begins. So a lot of your fall sports start getting information out, but your winter and spring may delay a little bit and wait until the students actually get to start school. But taking a look at some of our important information, fall sports pre-registration will be July 28th. And what that is that's an opportunity for us to be able to review the paperwork and information so that kids can start tryouts. I will put a caveat that this is all still tentative in one way, as the county does have to approve our actual start dates. So if they change the dates that we start our fall sports, we can always shift our registration a little earlier. Fall sports, it looks as tentatively for August 1st, but I'm hearing that we may start golf early as July 28th. And so if that's the case, then we'll move the fall sports registration to make sure we accommodate that. Usually the county approves the timeline somewhere around February to March, and we post that information on oaktonathletics.org. Also on our website, you'll see we'll have a one-page sheet with all the coach information, the sports, any activities that they might be doing beforehand, and have all of that posted late spring. So probably come the May time, we'll have all of that information on there as well for all fall sports for any either rising 9th grader or current student at Oakton High School who's interested in a fall sport. Important forms. There are required forms that we do have to have in order for any student to be able to participate in our preseason conditioning, preseason weight room, and of course, trying out for any season. So depending on what your son or daughter might be participating in, if they have stuff that happens over the summer, we will need this paperwork beforehand. It is up on our website. There are a couple things. You do have to wait until May 1st for one of them, and I'll outline that here in a moment. But the first piece we do need is our online sports registration, and that is different than the school registration. Online sports registration is about concussion education and emergency care information. And both a parent and student do need to be involved in part of this registration for the concussion education portion. We also need every student has to have a physical, and it must be on the Virginia High School League physical form. That form can be located on our website, as well as also on the FCPS website. You must have that dated after May 1st. Sometimes because of timelines for physicals, people get it earlier. We cannot take it before May 1st. We also cannot take it if it is on a form other than the Via to Sell form. So we'll talk about that. If you have questions about that, don't hesitate to reach out to our office and through that number I had earlier, or email myself or Miss Weber, and we can outline some of this as we get closer to it. I do suggest you wait until around the May timeframe, because in the event the high school league updates the forms, they don't do it until about May 1st, when it is actually a requirement. So I do know they added a COVID piece last year that that got updated late. So just to kind of give you a heads up. We also currently have a vaccination requirement for any students who are 16 and older. The possibility of that changing depending on if approval from the government for the vaccination for younger people are still going through that as to when that FCPS may amend that. So currently it wouldn't affect most rising freshmen, but just be aware that that could be updated. Once they get to 16 years old, they will need to have show current vaccination or be tested weekly. And so that's kind of where we are right now. There's oaktonathletics.org is our primary website for being for our information. It is where we post stuff. I'll also show you some of our social media information coming up.
Before you move on, Mr. Fulton, I ask a couple questions that are in the chat. One is, can you reiterate the need for experience? I know you talked about some sports that are very welcoming, and maybe reiterate that piece of it. Like, do you need experience to try out and that sort of thing?
To be honest, it depends on the sport. So when I said welcoming, like freshman football, for example, anybody who wants to come out and put in the time is welcome to participate in our freshman football program. You don't have to have experience for that, because not everybody obviously plays football in the youth league, but we do have some that do. Same thing with field hockey, is that freshman program, it is a little bit more competitive. So you may need to have a little bit of experience or background in either field hockey or, and I would say you don't always, because field hockey is a sport that doesn't have a large club, but sometimes you do have to have team sport background to be able to adapt to the field hockey program, because it has grown at our school at the freshman level. But our cheerleading program is very welcoming. Our golf program might be a little bit more competitive. And with golf, there is no freshman or junior varsity level. There is only varsity. So it has a limited roster. So it might be a little bit tougher to make. So you do have to play golf regularly, looking at our fall sports. So to be honest, that kind of goes from sport to sport as to which one might be a little bit more competitive for the tryout for our athletes. The one thing you can do is always email the coaches, and they will be able to outline some of the things that they've had for previous tryouts to give an idea where your son or daughter might be if they're interested in any one of our programs.
And then there was a lot of questions about, is it possible to do more than one thing, right? Like you want to participate in band and something else. Can you talk a little bit about
Absolutely.
that piece of it?
It's a little bit more complicated. It really depends on what you're trying to do. So for example, football and band may not be two things that go together well, because they tend to practice at the same times. And so it's much more difficult to do that. We have had somebody who's done that before in the past, but sometimes it's a little easier to do. Football might be working with, say, cross country, and they might be able to work that out because they practice different ways in different times. And so our coaches have sometimes worked together to make sure those athletes could participate in both. But it is very, all of our programs are pretty time intensive. So what it takes is a lot of coordination from the athlete communicating with the head coaches from those programs. And if your son or daughter has two interests, for example, in the fall season, they really like football, but they also like running and cross country. Usually they will try out for one first, but they communicate with the coach for the other. So, if they try out for, I picked two that are relatively open programs, but if they tried out for football and say weren't able to make the program, they communicate with the cross country coach and say, I want to try, football's my real passion, but I also love running. So if I'm not successful at making the football program, I'd like to come out for cross country. And a lot of our coaches then, share the opportunity so that if you don't make one, you're not closed from going out for any of the other programs during that season. But it does take coordination with communicating with the coaches so they're aware that somebody's coming later on to try out for another program.
And does that ring true as well for if they're unavailable during tryout week, but available the following week? What should they do in those instances?
I would communicate with the coaches, because some of it depends on what is going on with the programs. Football would be a prime example that it's a little bit trickier, because that program has very set criteria for days that you have to do certain things. You have to do certain skills for certain days, then step up to the next skill, to the next skill, to the next skill. And it makes it sometimes a little tougher to transition. But you need to talk to the coach about what that is, and those questions, because the coaches know exactly what the training plan is and can prepare for that. All those types of scenarios where you might do one or the other or have conflicts, it's a communication with the coach, and it should be done in advance so that they're prepared, because we have had families who come back from 3 weeks off in the summer, and at that time it is too late to get into a program that has already made their cuts and is already advancing in team play, and just started developing strategies for the whole season. So definitely communicate with the coaches if you have those kinds of conflicts or questions. All right, I also saw one, is football and swimming in the same season? And the answer is no. Swim team is in the winter and football is a fall sport. If you ever have, for example, if we are successful in making postseason in a sport, it does not preclude you from trying out for the next season if it overlaps with the tryout period, because there are several sports that if we go into state play, it does overlap with tryouts. Again, you just tell the coach, I am trying out for swim, but right now I'm, playing football and we're in the postseason, and the coaches then will, gladly welcome you at the conclusion of the fall season going into winter, and winter going into spring. All right, Ms. Hogan, why don't you go to the next slide and then we'll keep going. So again, communication, I can never reiterate too much that oaktonathletics.org is a primary way to be able to find our information throughout the year. It has all of the coaches, head coaches' contact information under each sport. It also on the front page, and there's an information page that also outlines tryout information. As I said, when we start gearing up through the springtime, we start to get information out about the fall, about what the tryout dates are. Football has an additional weigh-in and testing days that they have to do to get kids ready, sizing for helmets. So we put that information out. That happens prior to tryouts. So that information is there. I also encourage you, if you have social media, to follow us on our social media. Our Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook pages have all the information out. We also put in, as things happen, we put out information about those things as they're coming in for opportunities. We're going to have a 7-on-7 football tournament this summer. And so we'll have information about that as that gets geared up at the end of April and May to start putting that out for the summer date. And so that's something to talk with our coaches about as well. I also encourage you to sign up for our News You Choose. We send out newsletters through that. I will definitely be putting out in the springtime that information about fall sports tryouts via that. You can scan that QR code or the link below. When Miss Lane, once you all are added to the Oakton High School list and Miss Lane puts out her News You Chooses, at the bottom of that, there's also an opportunity there to click a link to add more News You Chooses. And basically what that is a lot of groups at Oakton High School have their own separate News You Choose in addition to this general school one, so that we can put out the athletic information to people who are interested in information about athletics. Our fine and performing arts have News You Chooses that also go out for those areas. So you can click from a menu of things that you're interested in hearing about for Oakton High School. In addition to our sports programs, we have a very robust activities and club program. And so with that, we have a variety of different things in there. There's pretty much 3 different types of clubs that we have. There are the academic VHSL activities, and those would include your debate, your forensics, scholastic bowl, robotics, 1-act plays. Those are the ones we currently have. We're hoping that next year, if everything goes right with renovation, we'll be ready to start supporting esports as well. And those are all competitions that are at the state level. The Virginia High School League oversees those academic activities as well as all sports. So those are competitive ways that the kids can engage in VHSL activities, and another great way for kids to be involved at Oakton. If those aren't interests that your son or daughter might have, there are also just general interest clubs that we have. And we have two types of those. One would be our service clubs. And those are kind of like our Red Cross club, which helps out Red Cross causes, our Best Buddies, which helps out our Special Olympics kids. And there are many things there. Our club list has probably about 50 to 60 different things on it. That list gets bigger every year as we get new students who come in with new clubs they want to start. So it's a great opportunity. The other ones are, there's just the general interest clubs. Those general interest clubs are like ice hockey club, astronomy, computer graphics, and many more. And those clubs ebb and flow also in how many we have, because it's based on the students who come in. We used to have a paintball interest club because a lot of kids though in those years loved paintball. So they formed a club. They participated in it. It was on our books for years, but then those kids graduated and other kids didn't follow up in it. We have new things that come up all the time based on students' interests, and that's what these clubs are. That list is very long, and so I do encourage your son or daughter to check it out. It does change, however, from year to year based on student interest in those clubs. If by any chance there isn't anything on the club list that your son or daughter might be interested in, the reason why that list got so big is because kids have started new clubs. At the start of the school year, there is that opportunity to do so. They just come into our office, work with our assistant director, Ms. J. She guides them through the process and works with them about getting a sponsor and what that process is.
There's a couple questions in here about dance and ice hockey, as they're slightly different. Could you talk a little bit about how they could find more information on those two respective programs?
Okay, we do have dance information outlined on oaktonathletics.org. It is a club sport at Oakton High School, similar to crew, in that it has its own category that's a little different. It doesn't get governed by the Virginia High School League, but it does have competitions and is a competitive club club sport we have at Oakton. And that one will have tryouts at the end of the school year in the June timeframe. But our head dance coach is listed on oaktonathletics.org. As for ice hockey, unfortunately, ice hockey is not a sport that's recognized by Fairfax County Public Schools. So ice hockey, even though the kids wear really awesome Oakton jerseys and all of the kids on the Oakton team are members of our high school, they're not a recognized sport by Fairfax County. And so they are just a club that would be outside of the county jurisdiction. I believe it's the Northern Virginia Scholastic Hockey League. So that is, and we have no information at all about it other than that's the league that does it. If you go to their website, then they have the information for registering those kids into ice hockey. But unfortunately, ice hockey is not a recognized sport by Fairfax County. Okay, so before questions, so I'm obviously the director of student activities. So we cover the athletics and the activities side of the clubs at Oakton High School. But in addition to those, we have an outstanding fine arts department with great classes, which have great clubs associated with those as well. We have honor societies that are tied to a lot of our academic classes. We have our math league, which does fall into our area, but just there are so many things at Oakton. And then on top of that, if you add our performing arts between our chorus, our orchestra, our band, and our drama programs, there is something for every student to engage in at Oakton. So I do encourage your kids to come out, see all the things that we have to offer, and get involved in something. That is one of the #1 markers for success for kids transitioning to high school, is getting involved and finding something. I guarantee you, if there isn't something at Oakton, they have friends who are interested and then can start a club to be able to have that. So I do encourage you to have your sons and daughters check out all the things that we have to offer at Oakton, and there will be something for them. We have a very active student involvement between our athletics, our clubs, our fine and performing arts. So I do know we have something for just about everybody. at Oakton High School. So I do encourage them to get involved and to come out and join us at our various different activities. If for any reason they don't have an interest in joining a team for a sport, we also have spectators. We love our school spirit at Oakton. So I do encourage them to come out and watch our games, come out to our sports and cheer on the Cougars as we're doing all kinds of things throughout the year. All right, so let me take a look at some questions back here. Do we have to try out for volleyball? Yes, volleyball does have a tryout, but volleyball does have a freshman only program. That is a program that is a little competitive. So you do want to have some volleyball, experience to be able to try out for that program, at least some practice with it. So I do encourage them to, try working on some volleyball skills for trying out for that program.
And just to jump in, there was a question at the end here about fall tryouts. Fall sports tryouts are tentatively slated to be August 1st. That date may shift slightly. That will come out as soon as the county has approved the dates, but that is coming. And then the other question on fall sports, was the question on when practices will be. I don't think we can answer that question now.
No,
correct?
it does change. It does change annually based on the coaching staff and times available and facilities with the times that the coaches coach. So that does change a little bit. I see a question, when are physical forms required for spring sports? All physical forms are required prior to trying out for every one of the individual seasons. However, if an athlete was, say, interested in baseball, for example, our baseball team does do preseason conditioning in the fall, so they would also have to have the physical prior to doing the conditioning. So if they're only going to try out for a season, it would have to be by the first day of tryouts. But if they do want to do any of the preseason opportunities, they would have to have that physical form for that as well.
And then could you speak just briefly to the number of practices or games? Like what is that commitment level?
Okay, so for our athletic programs, there is a time commitment for most of our programs in being, 4, 5, or 6 days a week, depending on what your programs. For example, our basketball programs, those are 6 days a week. They have practices Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Saturday with games Tuesday and Friday typically. So those are very heavy on commitment. Most of our programs, as I said, some have 4 days. Those are just programs that usually have a robust club program with it. And so I'll give an example would be swim team. Swimmers for Oakton High School, most of our swimmers participate in club swimming as well. So they don't have to come to every Oakton practice as well as all of their club practices. They sometimes, if they swim 3 days a week for club, they may only come to one Oakton practice. And then our meets are typically once a week with an occasional twice a week meet. So that's one of those opportunities, but like our running programs are 5 and 6 days a week, and football 5 and 6 days a week. So most of our programs are pretty consistently 5 and 6 days. Soccer is one of those sports that is typically only 5 days a week because there's such a robust club that does weekend stuff. So they don't typically do weekend activities unless we have to do makeup games for that. But most of them, it is a time commitment. Multiple days a week. If we have sports that go over breaks, like winter break for our winter sports, they do participate over the winter breaks to be able to have games and practices and continue to keep the fitness level to be able to be competitive. So it does have those impacts over those seasons that have breaks as well. The QR code is disabled. Okay, we'll go ahead and get that fixed. And then repost when we do post this up, I'll have to maybe take a day to get it fixed and then we'll repost.
And then Ms. Hogan, there's a question in here about the virtual course requirement, asking if that's an offering at Oakton or how that happens.
Actually, the econ and personal finance class, since that is partially, it's still taught at Oakton, but it actually has a online piece that is like half the class is working through the online curriculum. So that actually takes place in that. Otherwise, you can take an online class that will count as well.
Okay. And then Pat, back to you. Is it possible to try out for a sport if you're new to the sport or have less experience?
It does depend on the sports. And that's the only thing. I would always encourage someone to come and try out for our programs. If you have concerns, communicate with the coach beforehand. They'll give you an honest assessment of where they are. And it also, sometimes it ebbs and flows with the year. Our swim program is a very successful program. There were years where we were dominating the state with a group of really, great swimmers. So when we had kids trying out for the program, they were very talented, very fast, but weren't able to make the program. Our coach told them, come back next year. We're graduating a lot of people next year that are very strong, that we'll have more opportunities. So the tryout times fluctuate based on year to year. So what might be, a tough year, one year also may not the next year be as difficult. But a lot of our sports, we do have a lot of kids who participate outside, but there are a lot of opportunities. So communicate with the coaches if you have concerns. They'll be honest about where their program is right now, and where they are hoping it to go, and what they need or think that students need to be eligible to try out or to be successful in making a program. Anybody is eligible to try out if they completed the necessary paperwork.
And just there's questions in here about where this will be posted on our on the links that I sent out on our website. There's when I sent out this recording not the recording. It's getting late. I apologize. When I sent out the link information for this meeting, it linked to our website. On Oakton's website, under the announcements, there's electives and course offering announcement. And when you click on that, we will have everything posted on there. The recording, this presentation, and then it has all the other resources that we talked about this evening. Tryouts for academic teams like robotics or debate.
So robotics recently has had some tryouts. I'm not sure if they ended up having to do it in the last 2 years with COVID, if as many kids came out for the program. Debate also did it before, but now I think they're back to being open. Those are very, very active programs at Oakton High School. So we do have a lot of people interested in it, but I do suggest you try out for those programs if they do in fact have tryouts. Most of the time they just give a letter of commitment and kind of outline some of the things for those. Robotics, sometimes it's just based on space, which we had a limited space before. Now, I think things are going to be a little bit different with some of the new areas that we're getting, hopefully, fingers crossed. And so we're going to be working through that with those. But I do encourage you to get in touch with the sponsors for those programs. And again, that will be something you can do at the start of next year. Debate does do some things over the summer, but that's only for the returning debaters. And so then you can reach out to the sponsor and kind of get that information to go through the year. But I do know they keep very large programs because they want people involved and engaged in them. And especially since debate doesn't necessarily have, people having those opportunities before.
We are getting late in the evening. We're an hour and 15 minutes in. So what I would like to do is kind of close for tonight. We are going to go out with this student activities video, but I do want to thank you all so much for coming. We are so looking forward to having you here. We still remain resources for you, but I also want to remind you that your current counselors can be very helpful for registration and answering questions that you have about the academic piece of it. Please reach out to our activities office if you have questions about our activities and what you need to do to prepare for what that might look like. And then any questions at all about anything that we talked about tonight, you can reach out to any of the three of us and we'd be glad to support. But this was a great video made by our leadership class and one of our leadership students. So I think it's a great way to end this evening.
This is your town when we want it now. How big is your army? 100,000. Faster they are when we come around. This is your town when we want it now. How big is your army? 100,000.
Tonight is the night. We'll fight till it's over. So we put our hands up like the ceiling can't hold us. Like the ceiling can't hold us. Back. This is the moment. Tonight is the night. We'll fight till it's over. So we put our hands up like the ceiling can't hold us. Like the ceiling can't hold us.
So again, thank you so much for coming. I want to give a special shout out to Ms. Hogan and Mr. Full for all the information they provided tonight. We will have a freshman orientation, which is over the summer. So we will send more information about that. It's usually the week before school. So we will get all that information out to everybody. But again, we look forward to having you a part of our Oakton community in a very short period of time. So have a wonderful evening, and please let us know how we can support in the transition. Good night.